There it goes. Okay, so we are recording now. My name is Dr. Waszak. I'm one of the Associate Deans in Graduate Nursing here at Felician, and this is how to write a paper in 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Okay. There we go. So this is a webinar sponsored by not only Felician Nursing, but also our Sigma chapter. We have a new Sigma chapter at Felician. We're very excited about it. We chartered our own chapter in spring of this year called Alpha Beta Chi. If you are already a member of Sigma, you're welcome and highly encouraged to join our Sigma chapter. You can keep your old chapter and add hours or transfer to ours for $20. And if you're not a member of Sigma, you'll have an opportunity to become inducted if you meet the nomination criteria towards your senior year of nursing school. Whatever level you're at, you have an opportunity for that. So what we're going to accomplish today is hopefully by the end of the session, you'll be able to identify at least one strategy to start writing, to get started when you're just sitting down and you want to start that paper. We're going to review the anatomy of a paper. We're going to perform a few analyses to kind of critique a paragraph. And we're going to describe a three-way check to polish a paper. So getting started, I always say when you're picking your topic to pick something you're passionate about. You never want to write something that is just uninteresting to you. Always follow your passion. Always follow that topic that you think, that's pretty interesting. Something you would bring up to your colleague. One technique for being productive is I think it's called the tomato timer technique. You know, those little tomato timers that people have in their kitchens. Anyway, if you set it for 20 minutes and it rings, then you stop working. So you would work in 20-minute intervals. And it kind of gives you that chance to get up, walk around, come back, and then sit down and work again if that approach works for you. Certainly a good question straight from the beginning is there enough evidence on this topic? Maybe you're really passionate about a topic, but there's not a lot on it because it's brand new or just not studied enough. So do that initial lit review just to say, okay, yeah, there's a few hits here. There's a few things that are going to match my topic that I can use. So that way you don't waste your time starting your paper and then end up finding out that you don't have enough evidence. Write your thesis statement. That can certainly be a good first step because then you know what your whole paper is going to be about. And that helps you guide the rest of your path forward. Another good approach to start out, a lot of people like to do this, is to draft an outline. So you would just basically take note of what the main ideas are of each of your paragraphs and then start filling them in. What would be the support for each of those main ideas? And start filling it in, and then you can transfer that into the paper. What we would not recommend is the use of AI tools. And of course, we're seeing that more and more now, but we want you to try thinking of your own ideas using your own creativity box. That's the best one, right? Your own mind. The anatomy of a paper looks something like this, and often when the composition of a paper is discussed, they use this hourglass figure where they talk about you're starting really broad and describing something, you're going really specific, and then you end broad again in your conclusion. So sometimes they talk about this broad, narrow, broad concept. But basically you're gonna with APA, you can have a cover page. If you're in a grad program, you're going to be using the professional edition of APA, which requires an abstract. And then you're going to have the introduction, the body of your paragraph, your body paragraph is going to flow from there, your conclusion, and then your last page, of course, the references. Let's go into each of these a little further. So the introduction, That's when you're going to describe what is this about. Some students skip this. Some students also, if they have an abstract, they think, oh, I don't need the introduction, because you're mentally thinking, oh, you just described what, in your abstract, you kind of described what the paper's about. But you have to do it again, because the introduction, pretend they didn't read the abstract and start fresh on the introduction. What is this about? Why do we care? That's so what, does that answer the so what question? And what I like to say is it something you would explain to your neighbor? And how would you explain it to your neighbor, someone who's not in the healthcare field at all, let's say? How would you describe it? So you're not going to go right in specific, right, to talking to somebody about a topic. You're going to start broad, give them some context. And you're going to end your introduction with, it's typically the last sentence of your introduction is your thesis statement. What will your paper explain? Be specific. So here's an example of one, and this is kind of a theme we'll use through this presentation. Although New York and New Jersey are neighboring states, and I just moved from New York to New Jersey recently, so that's why I came up with this. But although New York and New Jersey are neighboring states, they vary greatly for a resident with regard to cost of living, culture, and lifestyle. So right away, if that's the last sentence of your introduction, your reader knows what they're going to read about. And you've already set the stage for your paragraphs. One's going to be about cost of living. One's going to be about culture. One's going to be about lifestyle. So you can see how that's a good way to start writing is get that down, and you know how your paper's going to flow. So after you do your introduction, you're going to go into this your body of the paper. And just thinking about one paragraph, we're going to use a burger analogy, and I always like food analogies. And so we're using a burger. It could be a veggie burger. It doesn't have to be, meat per se, if you like veggie burgers better. But we're going to talk a little bit more about what I mean by that. But what is the body of a paragraph? You're going to have a topic sentence. Your topic sentence connects to your main thesis statement that you introduced in the introduction. You're going to support it, prove it, give some facts, give some points, and explain. Do you have an analysis? Explain the connections and go a little step further with it with your own critical thinking. And then the last sentence of the paragraph is going to be a conclusion or a transition to the next paragraph. So we'll go into this further, but we see a lot of times students will only have 2 sentences in their paragraph or 1 sentence in a paragraph, and clearly it's not going to have all of this information in it if it only has 1 or 2 lines. So we have to have a little more to it. The conclusion is going to repeat your main statement, your main points, introduce no new ideas. And this is an issue I see a lot too, where students will all of a sudden try to put in new things or things that require in-text citation. And if that's the case, it should have gone in another point in the paper. Don't introduce new concepts in the conclusion. It's wrapping it up, put a bow on it, just repeating in new ways what you have said before. So back to the abstract, again, it's different from an introduction. This is going to be probably more for the graduate students, unless you're, follow the protocol that's the prompts in your syllabus for the paper. But write it last, and that's why I put this last, because you would want to write the abstract last because it's a summary of your entire paper, and you're not going to know what that abstract is until you've written the paper. So you do that last, and you kind of summarize it, keeping it high level, avoiding any need to like have it in text citation, avoiding specifics, but use keywords, especially if it's going to be published and you want those keywords to help the readers find your article. So what's this whole idea of the hamburger, and why are we talking about hamburgers or cheeseburgers? So these are the different layers, let's say, of a cheeseburger. So the top bun is going to be your topic sentence. What's the main idea of your paragraph? The toppings are going to support your topic sentence. And you should have at least two points to support your topic. The meat is your analysis. And finally, the bun is your conclusion or your transition sentence. So you never want to eat a cheeseburger and you open it up, you're really hungry, right? And you eat it and it's just two buns and there's nothing in it. Or it's just, you go to someone's barbecue and it's just a bun, a meat bun, nothing else, right? No lettuce, no peppers, cheese, whatever, onions, whatever you like to have on it. Isn't it so much better with toppings? So just think about that when you're writing a paragraph. You want your paragraph to have lots of meat, lots of toppings, supporting your thoughts. Let's get into this a little further. So think of this as somebody's paragraph and you're reading it. So it's in the middle of the paper, and this is what it says. The cost of driving is higher in New York than in New Jersey. However, there are many other options for getting around. So this paragraph doesn't have a lot of meat to it, right? The cost of driving is higher in New York than in New Jersey. Sounds like a topic sentence, but there's nothing supporting it. And then it says, however, there are many other options for getting around. Sounds kind of like a transition or a conclusion, but there's nothing in between. So how can we show that we're not really proving what we're saying, right? It's not enough information. So that has no toppings or meat. It needs some support. Let's look at this one. It says there are higher auto insurance premiums because the risk for collisions is higher. Many of the roads in New Jersey are designed with jug handles to ensure safe left turns and have less traffic congestion. So I'm kind of missing, this is when I read a paper and I'm like, wait, what are they trying to say? Because there's no topic sentence leading the reader into what the main point is. What's the main idea here? It's missing that on the top, and it also doesn't have a conclusion. So this has lots of detail. However, there's no buns. It also needs more toppings. This one states the cost of driving is higher in New York than in New Jersey. New Jersey drivers pay lower insurance payments than New York drivers. The average price of gasoline is also higher in New York than in New Jersey. However, there are many other options for getting around. So now we're getting somewhere. We have a topic sentence, we have an idea, and it's supported a little bit there with another line, and then there's a conclusion. But there's only one point. So always try to get two supporting lines or two facts to support your main sentence. So it just needs a little more. I think this is the last one. The cost of driving is higher in New York than in New Jersey. So we have our topic. In fact, it costs an average of $119 more a month for car insurance in New York as it does in New Jersey. There are higher auto insurance premiums because the risk for collisions is higher. This is all true. This is all stuff I actually found in articles. However, there are many other options for getting around. So this actually seems like it needs just a little more. It's getting there. It just has one point. We just need a little bit more. We're getting there. So this is more like what a whole cheeseburger paragraph should look like. There's a topic sentence. The cost of driving is higher in New York than in New Jersey. Then there's evidence. There's something to support that. Although New Jersey drivers have 17% more violations than New York drivers, they pay lower insurance payments. In fact, so you're going further. In fact, it costs an average of $119 more a month for car insurance in New York as it does in New Jersey. There are higher auto insurance premiums because the risk for collisions is higher. The average price for gasoline is 3% higher in New York than in New Jersey. So we're adding more, another point. So another supporting line to your main topic, that the price is higher. And then there's more example of that to support that. There's another one, that's a third supporter. There are also tolls for commuting between states. This cost depends on where you are commuting from and to. And then your transition. However, there are many other options for getting around. This could lead to another paragraph where you're talking about transportation, perhaps. So you can see as you're writing, so if you're starting with an outline, you could really go with just your topic sentence and your main points supporting that topic sentence, and then go in and fill it in And as you say something, what does that mean? Add a little bit more, add another line saying why you think that is, or how is that important to your paper? Or give a more specific example, go in and do a little bit of analysis. So that's how you can kind of fill in your paragraph. And remember, each paragraph should have one main idea. If you start going off and putting another whole main idea, make it a separate paragraph. Okay, and here I'm going to go on my soapbox just for two things. One of them is the use of quotes. So, excuse me. Here's an example of a quote. The cost of driving is higher in New York than in New Jersey. There are tolls for commuting between states, and this cost depends on where you are commuting from and to. I am saving so much money since I moved to New Jersey. I don't have to pay any tolls to get to work now. That's my quote. So, what's the problem with this? Waiting for it to come up. There it goes. So, the problem with quotes in general, and why faculty aren't huge fans of quotes, is it's a regurgitation of words. You're taking it from somewhere and you're putting it in your paper. So if you're able to paraphrase that, it's so much better because you're putting it into your own words and you're showing that you understand what you're saying and how it's meaningful. So I always say, only keep it in the quotation marks and keep it as a direct quote if it's so powerful that you're going to lose that power if you reword it. So that's kind of, I think, a good litmus test whether you should keep that quote as a quote or not. And remember, when you're using a direct quote, you do have to make sure you're citing it properly with a page number if it has a page number for APA format. Another problem with this is that it's ending the paragraph. So you're just slapping on a quote at the end of a paragraph and it leaves the reader going, because whenever you write a quote, you should, if you do want to keep the quote, explain why you kept the quote. Have some analysis. Why did you put that there? Why is it so powerful? Explain it. Don't just tag it on the end and then that's it. And this quote isn't cited at all. There's no in-text citation. Another problem is the whole entire line is a quote instead of saying, as so-and-so said, and leading it into the quote. The whole line is a quote. So avoid that as well. So this is a better way to do it if you wanted to include this powerful quote. So you would have your first two lines and then you could say, as stated by Waszak, I am saving so much money since I moved to New Jersey. I don't have to pay any tolls to get to work now. The year of the publication, the page, if it has a page. And so that's one example of how you could cite it. And also keep it so you're not having the whole entire line be the direct quote. And this is an example of you can kind of explain a little after. So instead of just ending in a quote, have a little bit of explanation of why this is important to your paper. The last soapbox I wanted to get on is the use of assertions. And this is an easy one to fix. So this is a good one to pay attention to. So let's say you're reading this. The cost of driving is higher in New York than in New Jersey. You will always pay fewer tolls if you live in New Jersey. So sometimes students like to be like very, grand or something about their writing and use like always, but things aren't always, right? Always is a very strong word and things are almost always, never always. Things are never always. So avoid that word or use of any strong term like that. So the problem is if we're using words that indicate things are always a certain way, for example, is it supported by evidence? If not, it sounds like you're just making some sort of unsupported opinion. Is it really always true? If not, if there's a possibility it's not always true, soften that wording and reword it. So and a great example is it took thousands of studies, right? Hundreds of thousands of studies to prove that smoking tobacco and lung cancer are actually causally connected. You have to have so much evidence to say one thing causes another thing. So we have to be very careful with our use of words. And if you're not sure, soften the wording and then that association will be a little more realistic. So here's a better way to say it. You can say you may pay fewer. And see, it's one little slight change, but it makes it accurate now. So here's some different words that can be used instead of assertion words. So instead of saying well, you can say may, like our example here, or always. You could say sometimes or often. Instead of something will cause something, you can say it may be related to, may contribute to, or may be associated with. If something will increase, will it always increase? Not necessarily, right? It may enhance, it may promote. And instead of saying all, you can say, like, you want to say all of a certain culture does this, right? No, never say that. Not all. Maybe you could say many, some, most. And our last, so I got my soapbox here with the quotes and the assertions. The last thing I wanted to go over is that last check. And this is important because this is when you can turn your paper from a B to an A or bring it up a notch, bring it up a grade level, is doing that editing. And you always just have to leave yourself that extra day so you have time, because it's ideal to not look at the paper for 24 hours, look at it again, and then do this check so that you can clear your mind. Otherwise, you're reading and it just kind of looks the same, right? So try to just manage your time that way if you can. I know it's difficult. So this is one way to look at how to polish a paper is kind of like when you're crossing the street, doing a three-way check, right? They say look left, look right, look left. Same thing with polish the paper. We're going to have three things that we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is read the paper entirely, only looking at rubrics. So look in your syllabus and look at the rubrics that are going to be used to grade your paper and make sure all the criteria are hit. Did I include three strengths? Did I include a reference or a comparison to this, or whatever the elements are in your rubrics, just to make sure, double check that you hit those. The next time you're going to read, so you're going to read through your paper 3 times. The next time you're reading through your paper, only look at grammar and smoothness. And the best way to do that is actually reading aloud to yourself, because then you can see if you skip over words, oh, I didn't even realize I left that word out. You don't realize till you read it out loud. So that's when you can see some opportunities for grammar and smoothness. And there are tools to help with that, like Grammarly, that are acceptable to use. And Turnitin has a functionality like that as well, if it's enabled by your instructor. And the last check is looking at formatting. So that's where you're going to do your APA checks and make sure that all the formatting is the way it's supposed to be for APA 7th edition. And so there's a lot of resources that can help you and that can kind of continue on a lot of the aspects or things that I touched upon. The Purdue OWL Writing Lab, always a great resource for all kinds of tools for writing. There's and I'll send these out after I'll send this slide deck. There's a link that can help you with writing an abstract. Also another for writing a thesis statement. We always have our librarians. Caitlin Klahouzi is the librarian assigned to the School of Nursing, although all of our librarians are great. So that's someone always to keep in mind as well, especially if you're having trouble with formatting or finding a particular evidence. And finally, we have a great resource in our online library that's called the like an online research guide, I think they call it, and the link is there, and that gives a lot of information about APA. And we also have Academic Writer, the tool for in our online library that you can use for writing, and it puts it right into APA for you. And I know the library is having some upcoming workshops on Academic Writer and on citations coming up soon. So if you go to their website, go to their calendar, you can see when those sessions are taking place. I am going to just stop this. Attempt to stop this recording.